Here.
Deputy Mayor Keim.
Here.
Councilmember Weiss. And Councilmember Rodriguez is running late, but he said he will be here
In a couple of minutes. Okay,
in a couple
thank
of
you.
minutes.
So please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready to begin? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Mr. Navarro? This is a workshop, and it's on District 1 Councilmember application interviews, applicant interviews.
Correct.
You want to take it over now?
Sure. Honorable Mayor and council members, Seb Navarro, City Clerk. Today we are here to interview applicants for the vacant District 1 seat. So an overview of the interview procedure today. This is the interview procedure as follows. The city clerk will review the interview procedure, which I'm doing now. Each council member will each present up to 5 candidates that they would like to interview. The city clerk will create a list of candidates that will be interviewed and randomly select the order in which the candidates will be interviewed. Each candidate will be given time for a 1-minute presentation. Each council member may ask the candidate 1 question. The candidate will be given 1 minute to respond to each question. After interviewing all the candidates, the city clerk will take public comment, or if the council wishes, the council can hear public comment before submitting their 5 finalists to be interviewed. Once the public comment has concluded and the interviews have concluded, the council may deliberate the candidates. In accordance with Council Policy 100-61, at the conclusion of the interviews, council members will choose 2 to 3 finalists. The city clerk will list the finalists based on a random process, and at which time the city council will consider each of the finalists in order until a majority vote is reached. And we do have some applicants that did withdraw their applications today and this week since our last council meeting. Mr. Griffin originally withdrew his application about 2 weeks ago. Since that time, the following applicants have withdrawn their application for consideration. Zach Beck, Dr. Stacy Biggin, and Stephanie Ramos have withdrawn their application for the District 1 seat. We do have some of the applicants, a majority of the applicants online on Zoom, and we do have some applicants in the council chamber lobby to use the Zoom computer in the city clerk's conference room. So now I have reviewed the procedure, so I'm going to toss it back to the council to see how you wish to proceed.
So we each have up to 5 names to provide to the city clerk, who will then put together a chart. There could be some overlap, so let's take a couple of minutes to provide those.
And we do have public comment on this issue. Would the council want to hear the public comment before submitting their names, or?
No. Public comments are on D, which is after interviewing the candidates. So I think, unless we want to do both, because we have advertised it as after the interview. So, okay, so let's provide the names starting to my right. Did you want to do this? Do you want to hand them to the city clerk or take a couple of minutes to do that, or do you want to go ahead and just name them?
Well, we could always call it, you could always, depends on what the council wishes to do. It is a council policy, so there's some flexibility to that.
Right, and then you
would
have to come up, let's just go ahead, how long are you going to take to put together the
once I
list?
get the names from the council, I have to go to the laptop with the PowerPoint slide on there.
You need 5 minutes or 10 minutes?
Probably about 10 minutes to
Okay, let's take a
everything.
10-minute break.
Okay.
And at which time we will go ahead and provide you the names, and then you can assemble what you need to do. Thank you. Take 10 minutes.
My button, that we didn't agree to that.
read out or presented can speak now, and those who wish to wait until afterwards, we'll hear from them per the agenda. So does that meet with your approval, Councilmember Rodriguez?
So we're going to have 2 sessions of public comment?
Yeah, there's 9 altogether, so some of them will speak before, some of them will speak afterwards. It's up to them.
Got it. The ones that speak after, will that be after we vote or before we vote?
It will be per the agenda. It would be D, which is after the interview of the clients, but before the discussion. So as a regular council meeting, we would hear the presentation, and then we would hear from the comments from the public, and then the council would deliberate. It's basically similar to that.
Are we going to allow people to speak multiple times?
I don't believe they're going to want it. It's only 9 people. So would you like to do that?
Yeah, I'd
Councilmember
like to
Rodriguez?
hear public comment before I decide on my list.
Okay. We have received several emails. We have been receiving them for a few weeks.
Yes.
So we have those comments in writing as well.
All correspondence have been forwarded to the council before the meeting.
Okay, so their pleasure, whether they want to speak at this time or after the interviews.
So what I'll do is I'll call their names and ask them if they wish to speak now or until after the interviews.
There you go. Thank you.
Okay. So currently, right now, we have 9 speakers that wish to speak on this item. Our first public comment is from Nadine Scott. And I will ask Mrs. Scott if she wishes to speak now or after the interviews.
I'll speak now, thank you.
Okay, perfect. Whenever you're ready.
Where should I start? With the absolute corrupt smell of this appointment process? With Rodriguez's disgusting comments that interviewing all applicants, quote, is a waste of time? Or that you 3 men changed the council policy passed in December 2019 that laid out an open and transparent process for appointments that said applicants will be interviewed, not your buddies, not your developer buddies, not your chamber buddies, all applicants. Your disrespect for them will not be forgotten by me or the community at large. Weiss has lied and falsely accused the public of being forgers. Rodriguez owes his soul to developers. Neither of them can be objective or unbiased. That honor goes to you, Mr. Keim, to do the people's will. District 1 has overwhelmingly voted for Mayor Sanchez time and time again. This year, she took every single precinct in District 1, and indeed all but 1 precinct in the entire city. She has our support. We like the way she does business. Therefore, it's incumbent on you, Mr. Keim, to select someone the mayor and the voters prefer. We in District 1 voted for her, want to see her replacement with similar values and ideas. That person can only be Kyle Crahill. He's already engaged in municipal affairs and can step in on day 1, prepared to represent us in District 1, not the developers, not the chamber, not your buddies. To appoint anyone else gets the stench of corruption on you, Mr. Keim. Please do the right thing. Prove to us this is not a sham and a dog and pony show. If no agreement is reached on Mayor Sanchez's choice, then set this for an election. Do the right thing, Mr. Keim. We expect that of you. We know the other 2 men won't do the right thing, but it's all on your shoulders now. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Our next public comment is from Daniel Iman. Mr. Iman, do you wish to speak now or after the interviews?
I wish to speak now.
Okay, perfect. Whenever you're ready, sir.
Okay. Good afternoon, Mayor Sanchez and council members. My name is Daniel Iman, and I have been a resident of Oceanside for the last 30 years. I am here to speak on behalf of Mr. Clyde Frazier, a candidate for District 1. I have known Clyde Frazier for the last several years, and most recently having served with him on the board of directors for both the Veterans Association of North County and the Somerset Homeowners Association. Clyde has demonstrated excellent leadership qualities in both of these positions. He always takes the time to research and understand the challenges which present themselves in the course of his duties. He not only seeks advice from others, he takes that input seriously particularly when decisions need to be made. Clyde is tireless in his pursuit of what is best for any organization in which he commits himself. I believe Clyde Frazier to be an excellent choice for the District 1 seat on the Oceanside City Council. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next public comment is from Jane Marshall. Ms. Marshall, do you wish to speak now or after the interviews?
I will speak now.
Okay, perfect. Whenever you're ready.
All right, dear council, Jane Marshall, longtime resident, 30 year. This is the third council appointment in almost as many years. Appointments have not reflected the voice of the community and have created great mistrust and turmoil in our city. But you can change that. Today's the day to show that you can do what's best for Oceanside District 1 instead of what's best for special interest groups and even the chamber. Today is the day you can select an ethical and independent council member to represent this diverse, historic community instead of appointing someone that, quote, votes like I do. And today is the day that you can step out of the past and begin to rebuild trust with the Oceanside community by selecting a candidate who has planning commission experience, government experience, a sterling track record, and has shown that he can work on both sides of the aisle. I strongly request that you consider and appoint Kyle Crahill. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next public comment is from Jean de Galzain, or Jean de Galzain. I apologize if I'm mispronouncing your name. Are you on the Zoom call? And it doesn't look like you're on the Zoom call. So move on to our next public comment is from Diane Wolke. And we are looking for her in our list. And Ms. Wolke, do you wish to speak now or after the interviews?
I will speak now only because I have a national meeting I have to dash to.
All right, whenever you're ready.
The mayor's opinion to normally have the speakers speak after the presentation. If we support a democratic process over cronyism, then an election is the only choice. The process of an open and transparent review of candidates has already been tainted and invalidated by a rogue council member who willfully stepped outside of this process. The same individual has also made steps to stack the deck in his own favor by a particular appointment to the board of directors of the Chamber of Commerce and by the appointment of another individual who identifies himself as a commissioner on the Downtown Advisory Committee, supported by 2 additional council members despite false claims made by the appointee. It's the same appointee who is right now grinning and texting back and forth rather than paying rapt attention. The same city council member who shamefully displays volatile, menacing behavior directed at the council in an effort to intimidate. As such, this individual has demonstrated an inability to be objective and nonpartisan, an unwillingness to abide by a process of open, albeit extremely time-limited interviews. After all, anyone can talk the talk and tap dance for 3 to 10 minutes. In an open and transparent manner, with the same questions directed to each candidate, is also a blatant indication of an unwillingness to do the job one has been elected to do. The people of District 1 have the right to choose who they feel best represents them. A fair appointment process is clearly not possible here. Support democracy and let D1 voters elect their representative. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next public comment is from Arlene Hammerschmidt. Would you like to talk now or after the interviews? Please unmute yourself.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I
Yeah.
can.
I would prefer to speak now, please.
Okay, perfect. Whenever you're ready.
Thank you. So, council members, good afternoon. I can't express to you how very disappointed I am in the actions of this body in the last 3 weeks. Yes, you can do way better, and the voters expect that of you. Really, it's not in the best use of council's time to publicly interview every candidate so the process is transparent to the public? 6 hours is too long at the public's business you were elected to perform? How many hours per day do your working constituents put in? Is it because this body usually interviewed candidates in private, even recruiting them before opening the process to the public's eye? Public input in the process should be obvious, even to the casual observer. The policy was intended to correct two issues eroding public's trust of this body. The first is public availability of the application documents. That's better. The second, interviewing all candidates in public to take away the perception of backroom deals, shamefully got rationalized away. Public is now restricted to hear only the answers of those applicants each council member deemed worthy of an initial interview. The comparison to hiring for a business opening is completely invalid unless one's concept of local government is that it's owned by a group or entity. Public has the right to fully see the process by which those we elected do the public's business. Yet the majority of this body decided to keep the curtain of secrecy firmly in their control. Honestly, this process has been bungled so badly that the only truly fair method for District 1 voters to express their choice is by 1, Mayor Sanchez selecting the person to complete her term, or 2, deciding upon an election that will allow all voters to get familiar with all candidates. I'm embarrassed that this abomination strays so far from planning department's excellent process to fill planning commission vacancies. What to do? Right now, in discussion, make public the names of applicants each of you interviewed, the date, time, and place and duration of each interview, your criteria for selecting those you would interview, every question you ask every applicant you interviewed. And then, secondly, add the Carlsbad election option to this current policy and adopt it as city code. Codify the process that must be followed.
Mrs. Hammerschmidt, that's time.
Please select those finalists with actual long-term lived experience in District 1.
Thank you, Ms.
That's
Hammerschmidt.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Our next public comment is from Cindy Rocco, and she is not on the Zoom call, so we'll move on to our next public comment. It's from Christine Gorman. Do you wish to speak now or after the interviews? Please unmute yourself.
Okay. Yes, I'll speak now.
Okay, whenever you're ready.
I'm ready. This is Christine Gorman. I'm a 26-plus year resident of Oceanside. I ask you to bring this to the public so that we can vote at a public election. And in lieu of that, allow Mayor Sanchez to choose the person to complete her term. I don't think the process you have in place now in any way can, bring about a fair appointment. So I thank you for your time. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Our next public comment was from Jody Williams, but we don't see her on the Zoom call. So that concludes the public comment for this item.
Thank you, Mr. Navarro. And we'll call the other, I believe, was Jason Coker also on the list, because he reached out and asked me specifically when public comment was going to be heard. And I told him per the agenda, it would be after the interview of the candidates.
We have not received any registration from a gentleman of that name.
Okay, so we have 3 people then.
Yeah, we
that
have
that will call.
Jean de Galjean, Cindy Rocco, and Jody Williams. Is Jody Williams on the line? No?
Okay.
No.
So did you provide the names, Councilmember Rodriguez?
If the council wishes, we could probably call another break, because I still have to add
yes.
Councilmember Rodriguez's
So
names.
how much time do you need now? You've had no, I'm
Just
not asking you.
about 5 minutes or so.
5 minutes, okay. It is 2:36, so 2:31, so we will come back at 2:36. Thank you very much. Meeting this meeting. Mr. Navarro, are you ready?
I'm as ready as I'm ever going to be.
Okay, and how many names do you have?
We have 11 finalists. Councilmember Weiss has picked Joe Gallagher, Corey Jensen, Terry Johnson, Julia Juarez Miller, and Dean Anderson. Deputy Mayor Keim has picked Joe Gallagher, Corey Jensen, Tao Ha, Julia Juarez Miller, and Clyde Frazier. Mayor Sanchez has picked Kyle Crahill, Elizabeth Van Schwartz, and Tao Ha. Councilmember Rodriguez has picked Drew Andrioff, Corey Jensen, Terry Johnson, Darren Selnick, and Dr. Stacy Began, who withdrew, but Councilmember Rodriguez just wanted to show his support for that applicant. So we randomized the order in which the applicants will be interviewed. And the first applicant to be interviewed is going to be Darren Selnick, to be followed by Drew Andrioff, to be followed by Clyde Frazier Jr., to be followed by Terry Johnson, Kyle Crahill, Joe Gallagher, Corey Jensen, Dean Anderson, Julia Miller Juarez, Dr. Tao Ha, and Elizabeth Schwartz. I believe that's everybody. Yep. Yeah, I think I got everybody. So our first,
Could you have, while we listen, can you please do a hard copy of that so we can have it in front of us?
I'll type one out if you can read my handwriting.
Councilmember Weiss?
I just want to verify that, are we all asking the same question of all the candidates? And if so, I would suggest that we ask the question prior to the first candidate stepping up, so the first one has an idea what the questions are going to be and not have an unfair disadvantage.
How the council decided to proceed with the interview process is the candidate will have a 1-minute presentation. And then the 3 standard questions that I would normally ask, they've already answered that on their application. And then the council could ask anything they want of any candidate. So if the council wishes to ask the same question to every candidate, that's totally up to the council's discretion.
Okay.
If the council wishes to ask different questions of all the candidates, that's also up to the council discretion.
All right. Very good.
Okay, and that was noticed in the application and the agenda item, is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
And in the staff report that was published last week.
So, Councilmember Weiss, do you still want to?
Okay.
Okay, so we're going to go ahead with the first interview.
And our assistant city clerk is writing up the list, so there's a hard copy available for people to view. Are we ready? Yeah.
Looked like Michael Odegaard was raising his hand.
So Darren's first. So there was a question asked of what happens to the applicants that were not picked to be interviewed. First and foremost, I'd like to thank all the applicants
There
that
you go.
applied. It shows the civic engagement of the District 1 citizens for applying. So first and foremost, thank you all for applying. And if they choose to, they could stay on the Zoom call and watch the remainder of the meeting, or they could log off or do whatever they wish to do, but they will not be interviewed for the District 1 vacancy.
Thank you, and I also would like to thank all the applicants that took the time to fill out the application and speak to individuals and ask people to speak on their behalf to us. Thank all 35. I know there were several that in the end decided not to pursue their applications. And again, Mr. Navarro, who are the first 3 that are going to be speaking?
The first 3 that are going to be speaking are Darren Selnick, Drew Andrioff, and Clyde Frazier. And we are going to hopefully get this all sorted out.
And you're going to be able to have someone, staff person, print out a hard copy for each of us?
Yeah, we'll send that
Okay.
over.
Thank you.
That's what we're doing, Victor. A little. Thank you. Perfect. We're going to send this to the city clerk's office to get it printed out for staff member to print it out and bring you a copy. After Mr. Frazier, the next three are Terry Johnson, Kyle Crahill, and Joe Gallagher. Our first one's Darren Selnick. Okay, so we do have Mr. Selnick on the Zoom call. Of course, it would help if I unmuted myself. Mr. Selnick, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. You have 1 minute for a presentation, and then each council member is going to ask you a question, and you have 1 minute to respond to each question. Whenever you're ready, you can begin.
Thank you. Mayor Sanchez, Deputy Mayor Keim, Council Members Weiss and Rodriguez, thank you for the opportunity to interview for the open District 1 council member position. I'm a 9-year resident of Oceanside. District 1 would like to be appointed in order to serve the residents of District 1 and all of Oceanside. With a lifetime of public service, first as an officer in the military, a senior advisor to the Department of Veterans Affairs, and as a board member on 2 community nonprofits. I volunteered to use my expertise on federal commissions, city committees, veterans organizations, and community organizations in order to improve the lives of veterans, the homeless, and those less fortunate. I believe Oceanside is a great place to live with tremendous potential, but faces many current and future challenges such as homelessness, COVID-19, housing, jobs, and infrastructure. I'd like to use my diverse expertise and experience from both the public and private sector to continue my public service by helping make Oceanside the most desirable place to live, not only in San Diego County, but in the country. I appreciate the opportunity to be considered for this very important appointment. We'll consider it an honor to be appointed and to serve as a Oceanside City Council member. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. And I don't think we've ever established a policy of who went first. Okay, all right. Councilmember Weiss?
Good afternoon, Mr. Selnick. Do you generally support or oppose the types of housing projects the city has approved over the past few years? And what would you do differently, if anything, to address the housing crisis?
Yes, I mean, generally I support the city's efforts in the housing. And when there's not consensus to put it on the ballot, what would I do differently? I think the challenge, as Measure L showed, is that we need more community input and support as we go forward. Updating the general plan and making sure that we provide all types of housing so that our kids can afford to live in the city in the future. And so more stakeholder input, more community support, more listening to constituents to continue to develop the general plan and have a real consensus about what housing should and could be as we go into the future and for the next 20 years.
There is no question from Councilmember Rodriguez. Mayor Sanchez?
Thank you. If selected to represent District 1 on the Oceanside City Council, what would be your priorities?
Well, I have a number of priorities. As I mentioned earlier, homelessness is a top priority, but I think the number one priority is rebuilding the city from COVID-19, getting an economic recovery, making sure it's business friendly. And then we need to go ahead and work on homelessness, housing, education, infrastructure, roads, and making sure we have a good safety in our city police and fire department.
Thank you.
Deputy Mayor Kime?
Mr. Selnick, is keeping sand on our beaches a priority for you? And would you support fixed structures possibly if that was the recommended solution going forward?
Yes, sand is a priority. We're a tourist town. Without sand, there's not much for tourists to come into. I enjoy the beaches, as I'm sure most of you do. And yes, I would go with the experts and the best way to keep the sand. And if that means there needs to be a fixed structure to do it, that's what we should do it. Obviously, we need to work with the Coastal Commission and get input in terms of what needs to happen. But yes, definitely, I am a proponent of making sure we have sand for our beaches and great beaches for the citizens, for the residents, and for the tourists.
Thank you, Mr. Selnick. We're going to move on to the next applicant. You're more than welcome to watch on KOCT or stay on the Zoom call. So our next applicant that we're going to be interviewing is Drew Andrioff, and I'm going to try to figure out how to put him on Zoom. Mr. Andrioff, can you hear me?
I can. How you doing, Zeb?
Perfect. All right.
All right.
Hi.
Good afternoon.
So whenever you're ready, you have a 1-minute presentation.
Great. Good afternoon, Honorable Mayor and Council. My name is Drew Andrioff, a 27-year resident of Oceanside and a 11-year resident of what is now District 1. I'm fairly certain by now you all know me well enough to understand my views and my dedications to the citizens of our city. By appointing me to the council, you would find stability in the position and a council person who would act with impartiality and willingness to work with staff, council, and public to continue moving Oceanside in the right direction. I'd say my greatest asset to this position is my ability to know what I know and what I don't know. It's important to draw on the experience and expertise of those around you to understand the impact of a decision and how we best move forward. My top three priorities for the city, first and foremost, would be public safety in regards to the homeless issue. Second would be growth and housing in regards to our upcoming general plan update. And third is sand retention within our beaches. Thank you for your time and your consideration.
Councilmember Weiss?
Mr. Andrioff, I know you just kind of addressed it, but do you generally support or oppose the types of housing projects the city has approved over the past few years? And what would you do differently, if anything, to address the housing crisis?
Well, you know, housing is going to be a big factor coming up in Oceanside. We have a large amount of units that we need to build here to make sure that we're meeting our RENA numbers for the growth of our city. You know, with any development, you're going to have a number of impacts, rather that's traffic, rather that's population, pollution. So what we need to do is work to mitigate those. We're never going to have a perfect development, and I don't think we should be fighting good development for the sake of perfect development. Otherwise, we're going to begin to lose local control to meet these numbers coming from Sacramento. So I do support building more houses. It's obvious that we need all forms of housing, affordable, middle market, as well as executive homes for people who are growing and want to upgrade the homes that they're currently in. So it is something that, there's some great concerns. How do we address the mitigation and how we improve our infrastructure for that growth?
That's time, Mr. Andrioff. I know 1 minute goes by really, really fast.
It goes real quick.
Okay. The next question is going to be from Councilmember Rodriguez.
No question.
No question from Councilmember Rodriguez. Mayor Sanchez?
Thank you. My question is, if selected to represent District 1 on the Oceanside City Council, what would be your priorities?
So thanks, Esther. My top 3 priorities are public safety. We do need to make sure that we're properly giving the resources to our police and fire, and we need to begin working on a couple different solutions within Oceanside to address our homeless issue. If you talk to anybody, not just in my district, but throughout the city, you'll find that that is their top concern, is that there is a large homeless population here, and we're having kind of difficulty finding a solution towards it. Obviously, the next is housing and growth. Our city's growing. We're having families raise their kids here in Oceanside. People are second, third generation wanting to stay here, and we're going to have to do a lot to meet those needs. It's we need to make sure that we're building along our proper transit corridors so we can properly build these homes and meet our numbers. And obviously, third is sand retention. We've been shuffling sand around Oceanside for decades now, spending millions of dollars.
The next question's from Deputy Mayor Keim.
As you addressed, is keeping sand on our beaches a priority for you? And if the recommendation is for fixed structures, would you be open to supporting that?
Absolutely. Oceanside has always been a tourist town. That's why we have the pier. That's why we had the holiday playland. That's why you tan your hide in Oceanside. That's the old saying, right? So if we continue to lose sand from the harbor, we're going to lose out on the tourism and everything that we've put to improve downtown and bring people to Oceanside. And that's going to be a huge factor for our economic recovery in regards to COVID-19. Once we get past this and people start coming back to Oceanside, that's really going to bring that influx of money to our local businesses. So sand is top priority, and I would support fixed structures.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Andrioff. We're going to move to the next applicant. You could remain on the Zoom or log off, however you choose. And our next applicant to be interviewed is Clyde Frazier Jr., and he is on the Zoom call, and we're getting him all squared away. Mr. Frazier, are you there? Can you hear me?
I am. Can you hear me?
We could hear you. So you have a 1-minute presentation, and whenever you're ready, you could start.
Mayor Sanchez and members of the City Council, good evening. My name is Clyde Frazier. I'm a 34-year Marine Corps veteran, and I've lived in Oceanside for 47 years. My wife is also a longtime resident of the city. She graduated from Oceanside High School, and we have strong ties to the city and its communities. We're also resource parents and have opened up our homes to foster children in Oceanside. I have a background in public works, engineering, and housing, as well as planning and water resources. I've worked with law enforcement alongside Oceanside Police and volunteered with nonprofits to assist veterans and local citizens. I've worked with state and local governments on policy. I'm going to use those skills to be a strong advocate for District 1 and for the betterment of our entire city. I will support programs that promote affordable housing, reduce homelessness, provide a safe environment for our youth. I will work with each of you, if selected, to make Oceanside better for all citizens, entrepreneurs, and tourists. Thank you.
Thank you. The first question's from Councilmember Weiss.
Good afternoon, Mr. Frazier. Do you generally support or oppose the types of housing projects the city has approved over the past few years? And what would you do differently, if anything, to address the housing crisis?
Yes, I generally support the houses that have been approved and built over the last several years. However, like everyone knows, that there is definitely a shortage of housing, and I'm all for inclusionary, affordable homes. We also need to think of the homes that need to be built for others as well. I think we need to take advantage where we can for infills in communities that's already established. And we need to also take advantage of rezoning if necessary in order to meet our needs for the houses to accommodate the growth that Oceanside is getting every year, particularly with the Marines being discharged from Camp Pendleton. Studies show that a lot of them are actually deciding to stay here in Oceanside. So yes.
Thank you. The next question is from Councilmember Rodriguez.
Hoorah, Marine. Thank you for
Hoorah.
submitting your application. It's good to see you on the line, and I appreciate your community support and applying. My question has to do with the future of the city of Oceanside with respect to cannabis. What are your views on recreational and medicinal cannabis and opening retail dispensaries in the city of Oceanside?
My views on cannabis for medical purposes or to adults only, I would support. However, I need to caveat that as long as there is strict control and accountability. I certainly would not be a customer. However, it's not necessarily about me, it's about the community, but it would have to be with strict control and oversight.
Thank you. The next question is from Mayor Sanchez.
Thank you. Mr. Frazier, if selected to represent District 1 on the Oceanside City Council, what would be your priorities?
We certainly need to do everything we can as a city to help our citizens overcome and recover from COVID, which has been very devastating, particularly in small businesses. Public safety, affordable housing, reduction in homelessness, support for our youth programs, and economic growth and development would be the priorities that I would be looking at.
Thank you.
Next question is from Deputy Mayor Keim.
Mr. Frazier, is keeping sand on our beaches a priority for you? And if recommended, would you be open to supporting fixed structures if that's the option?
You're coming in a little muted. I can't. Could you repeat the question again?
Is keeping sand on our beaches a priority for you?
Absolutely. Oceanside is it's a beach town, much like a military town, and people come here, tourists, for our beaches, and we're going to have to keep our beaches in tip-top shape for them to continue to be attracted to Oceanside. So absolutely, sand would be a priority.
Would you be supportive of or open to fixed structures if that was the recommended solution?
Yes, I would, indeed.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Frazier. This concludes the interview. We're going to move on to the next applicant. You can remain on Zoom or log off, and we'll move on to the next applicant, Terry Johnson. And Mr. Johnson's using the city clerk laptop in our conference room, and we're going to get him on the Zoom call here. We had it. Yeah. Yeah, there seems to be a connection issue with the laptop in the conference room. So we're gonna see if everything's okay there. We're just gonna double check this connection here. We don't hold the meeting up. If council wishes, we can move on to the next applicant while we look at what the technical issue is over there. So I'm going to get Kyle Crahill on the line. Mr. Crahill, are you there? Can you hear me?
Yes, hi, thank you.
Okay, perfect. I can hear you. You have a 1-minute presentation. Whenever you're ready, you could start.
Thank you. Honorable Mayor and City Council members, I applied for this vacancy because I love Oceanside, and I think I can bring unique vision and value to the City Council. I was born and raised in Oceanside. I graduated as the valedictorian from El Camino High School, and I went on to earn a degree in government from Harvard University. Then I came back home and worked for the city, where I learned firsthand how our municipal government works. I'm now honored to serve on the Planning Commission. I was elected by my fellow commissioners from across the political spectrum to be the chair. As you know, the Planning Commission is the best training ground for the City Council. We deal with many of the same issues and decisions that the City Council has to work on. And in my day job, I work for our local congressman. In that work, I have great relationships with all different levels of government. This will help us bring more funding to our city, which we desperately need. I'm the only candidate, besides the former mayor, who has the experience on the issues that we are going to need to work on, and I will not need on-the-job training. I pledge to cooperate, discuss, work together, and get things done. So I humbly ask for your consideration and your vote. Thank you.
Thank you. The first question's from Councilmember Weiss.
Mr. Crahill, do you generally support or oppose the types of housing projects the city has approved over the past few years? And what would you do differently, if anything, to address the housing crisis?
Thank you for the question, Councilmember Weiss. I do generally support most of the projects the city has approved. In fact, I've personally voted for hundreds of new units in my time on the Planning Commission. I'm very proud of those votes. We have a housing crisis in Oceanside. It needs to be addressed, or more of our young people will be forced out of Oceanside. But it must be solved by Oceanside, not by Sacramento. We must preserve local control. I believe that the city's preliminary plan for a smart and sustainable corridors shows that we can increase density and grow sustainably. We need to prioritize smart growth, building near our existing infrastructure. We are blessed with a robust transportation network, and we should capitalize on that by encouraging growth there. I look forward to working with all of you to update our general plan to design the vision for how we can build the housing we need for our working families.
Thank you. The next question's from Councilmember Rodriguez.
COVID-19 on the forefront. Mr. Crahill, do you support Governor Newsom's policy in response to COVID-19 and the statewide shutdowns of small businesses?
I generally support whatever the public health officials and scientists support, not what politicians support. I want to make sure that our business can thrive and survive. We must be showing them the kind of support that the City Council has been trying to provide through the grants that you've been providing, as well as from the other levels of government. I want to bring those kinds of funding mechanisms to our city so that we make sure that we are working completely integrated with other levels of government to support our businesses. I hope that we can move forward very quickly with vaccinations. Now that we have the Live Well Center in Oceanside doing that, hopefully we can be able to move past this crisis, get our businesses opened up as soon as possible, because they just can't stand this any longer.
Thank you. The next question is from Mayor Sanchez.
Thank you. Mr. Crahill, if selected to represent District 1 on the Oceanside City Council, what would be your priorities?
Well, we have a lot of important work to do, but if I had to pick my top 3 priorities, they would be, we'd have to solve our housing and homelessness crisis. Our businesses and residents are suffering from the effects of these crises. And if we want to maintain our prosperity and our quality of life, we have to address these head on. They're both interlinked, and our solutions must approach them holistically. Another priority is to restore our beaches, which I'm sure we'll get into in a second with Councilmember Kime. But this is an issue that has a huge impact on our business and residents as well. Tourists come to Oceanside because of our beaches, and they're one of the best parts of living here. We need to get sand on those beaches for all of us to enjoy. And finally, we need to support our businesses, residents, our public safety in our neighborhoods. Our businesses are struggling. They need our continued help. Public safety is the foundation of the quality of life for our residents, and our neighborhoods are what make our community what it is. Working together, we can make progress on these priorities, and I look forward to doing that with all of you.
Thank you.
The next question's from Deputy Mayor Kime.
Mr. Crahill, is keeping sand on our beaches a priority? And if recommended, would you support fixed structures to do that?
As I said, it's one of my top 3 priorities. We desperately need more sand on our beaches. I'm open to any solution that will be effective. If we can get the permits, then I definitely support it. I am hesitant to pursue something, which I told you when we met, that will end up in endless litigation and never goes anywhere, but I'm definitely open to solutions and setting our options. We may need a variety of solutions, whether it's through sand transport, soft retention devices, and then more. So the most important thing though right now is we need more sand. And my connections with other levels of government can be useful in getting federal funding and other levels of government, as the state, for sand replenishment projects. And I look forward again to working with all of you to make sure that that happens.
Thank you, Mr. Crahill. That concludes your interview. We're going to move on to the next applicant. You're more than welcome to stay on the Zoom call. And I think we got Terry all sorted out in the city clerk's office. And thanks to our IT crew for fixing that.
Yes,
Mr. Johnson, can you hear me?
Yes, and thank you for being so patient with me.
Okay. Whenever you're ready, sir, you have a 1-minute presentation.
Yes, thank you. Mayor Sanchez and council members, thank you for the opportunity. The most important part of public service is serving with humility, being a team player, and reaching consensus with the ultimate goal of improving the quality of life in Oceanside. And I just want to say that, and you all know my background, but I have the experience and the passion to come on board from day one, do the job that's necessary to help you to continue to improve the quality of life here in Oceanside. And once again, thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. The first question is from Councilmember Weiss.
Mr. Johnson, do you generally support or oppose the types of housing projects the city has approved over the past few years? And what would you do differently, if anything, to address the housing crisis?
Short answer, I would say, yes, I support the direction we're headed. I do have concerns regarding the South Coast Highway Vision Plan. And of course, we need to continue to look at the transit corridors and do what we can to develop that part of the city with additional high density housing. And we're still waiting, as you know, for the Sophomore Hills plan to be finalized.
Thank you. The next question is from Councilmember Rodriguez.
No questions.
No question from Councilmember Rodriguez. The next question is from Mayor Sanchez.
Thank you. Mr. Johnson, if selected to represent District 1 on the Oceanside City Council, what would be your priorities?
Thank you for the question. As a lifelong resident of this city, I have lived in District 1 for over 15 years. And as we have done before, public safety is always number one, no matter what you do. And secondly, in order to improve the quality of life for everybody, not just District 1, you have to have economic development. And you have to be able to draw in the investors and have the stakeholders buy into what needs to be done to improve the quality of life for all the residents. And also regarding, especially District 1, it's important that we have the neighborhood cleanups as we have done before. It's important to have code enforcement to work hand in hand with all the residents and the stakeholders. But public safety is first and foremost.
Thank you. The next question is from Deputy Mayor Keim.
Mr. Johnson, is keeping sand on our beach a priority, and would you support fixed structures if that was a recommended solution?
Well, Councilmember, before I would go that route, as a former coastal commissioner myself, I served for 2 years when the Lieutenant Governor Cruz Bustamante appointed me back in '97. Having groins or fixed structures are very controversial. I would say before we consider that, maybe look at some type of year-round dredging operation where we can partner up with the County of San Diego and use that dredge to go up and down the coast of San Diego to have the sand put on the beaches from the offshore sand deposits that we have. There's literally millions of cubic yards of sand offshore, but we have to have the ability to dredge that sand and pump it onshore. And I will look at that type of an operation first before we do permanent fixtures or groin-like fixtures.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. That concludes your interview. We do have Joe Gallagher scheduled next, and Mr. Gallagher is also at the clerk's office to use the laptop. However, the clerk's office does have a sanitization protocol, and we do need to sanitize the room after Mr. Johnson leaves. So with the council's concurrence, we're going to move on to the next applicant while we sanitize the room. And apologies to Mr. Gallagher, it's just the weird luck of the draw. So we're going to move on to Corey Jensen next. And we're going to see if she's on the line. And I think she was, and we're looking for her. Is she there?
Can you hear me?
I could hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. You have a 1-minute presentation.
Good afternoon, Honorable Mayor Sanchez and members of the council. My name is Corey Jensen, and as a third-generation Oceanside resident, I care deeply about this city, and it would be an honor to serve on the council. My maternal grandparents were immigrants from Mexico, and my father's parents moved here from Minnesota, all of them seeking opportunities to build businesses and raise families in Oceanside. Our city faces an unprecedented set of challenges that I'd like to work with you to address. As I see it, the critical problems are homelessness, public safety, addressing the housing supply problem, assisting local business owners that have been severely harmed by the pandemic, and working with the city staff to ensure that the concerns of residents are addressed promptly. I believe in working collaboratively to solve problems. I certainly have the confidence in my ability to be an excellent representative for the people who live in District 1. As council member, I intend to work closely with you who are on the council and the excellent city staff to solve problems and move Oceanside forward.
That's 1 minute.
Thank you for the opportunity to address you.
Thank you. Our first question is going to be from Councilmember Weiss.
Good afternoon. Do you generally support or oppose the types of housing projects the city has approved over the past few years? And what would you do differently, if anything, to address the housing crisis?
In general, I usually do support the housing developments that we have an opportunity to participate in. Oceanside, I believe, is 6,000 units short of what the state would like us to have. And I think that we need to find a balancing act to maintain our character of our community. And at the same time, we need to ensure that young families and everybody in Oceanside has an opportunity to obtain housing.
Thank you. The next question is from Councilmember Rodriguez.
No questions.
No question from Councilmember Rodriguez. The next question is from Mayor Sanchez.
Thank you, Ms. Jensen. If selected to represent District 1 on the Oceanside City Council, what would be your priorities?
My priorities for District 1 are going to be public safety and the homeless, and I believe those go hand in hand. My district, District 1, recommends incredible socioeconomic diversity. As a Mexican-American woman and a PFLAG mom, I understand diversity and the challenges faced by minority communities. My firstborn son's father is from Hawaii, and my son is not only gay, he is Pan-Asian. I know firsthand the challenges these communities face. My district also has seniors, low-income housing, active duty military, veterans, high-income beachside housing, and a very wide range of diversity. As council member, I will represent all of those sectors equally.
Thank you. The next question is from Deputy Mayor Keim.
Ms. Jensen, is keeping sand in our beaches a priority to you, and would you support fixed structures if that was the recommended solution?
Absolutely. I think sand is imperative to our beach community. We used to have one of the largest beaches, if not the largest beach in San Diego County. I know the sand has migrated over to Del Mar Beach since the harbor came in. And I think it's imperative to find a way to bring our sand back to our beaches for our tourism, for our residents, for everybody to enjoy. And I would support any measure that staff comes up with and council comes up with to retain our sand on our beaches.
Thank you. That concludes your interview. We're going to move on to the next applicant. You're more than welcome to stay on the Zoom call. And apologies, Mr. Anderson. I know in the order it said that you were next, but we had to wait for the room to be sanitized. So we're going to go back to Joe Gallagher in the clerk's office. Mr. Gallagher, can you hear me? Oh, we can't hear you, sir. I think
can you hear me now?
I can hear you now. All right. You have a 1-minute presentation. Whenever you're ready, you could start.
All right, thank you. Obviously, my name is Joe Gallagher. I came to Oceanside as a United States Marine about 40 years ago. And I figured if the Marine Corps put me here, I must stay here. And it's been a great decision. Over the years, I've served on numerous commissions and volunteer roles. I started with the Beach Task Force. I was 19 years on the Integrated Waste Commission. I currently serve on the Citizens Investment Oversight Committee. I've been a manager, coach, and board member for the Oceanside American Little League for 12 years, a longtime member and board member of the California Surf Museum, and very involved in the OCNA and other organizations within the community, as well as on board Camp Pendleton. One thing that I've noticed in Oceanside over 40 years is the dynamic change. We're from a rough and tumble town to what we have now is a much more user-friendly community. But one thing that has not changed is the quality of the people in Oceanside. They are fantastic then, they are fantastic now. Some of the best people I've ever met in my life. And I would thank you for the opportunity to possibly serve them.
Thank you. Our first question is from Councilmember Weiss.
Mr. Gallagher, do you generally support or oppose the types of housing projects the city has approved over the past few years? And what would you do differently, if anything, to address the housing crisis?
I do generally support them. The community has grown. We want residences for our families, our children. One of the things I think that has been a great advantage recently is the accessory dwelling units. I've seen a few of those go up in my own neighborhood in District 1. I'm very impressed with them. I think it's an innovative solution. I like the way the process has been streamlined to help owner residents create housing for other residents of this city. We still have opportunity within the district to have some infill housing created and to also look at some of the dynamic solutions that are being used in other cities. I just read recently of shipping container construction for apartment type buildings. There's all manner of construction opportunities out there. I think the balance that we have to establish always is the quality for good housing, affordable housing for our city residents, and also for maintaining the quality of our environment and the quality of life. And I think that we have a great city, a great...
That's 1 minute, Mr. Gallagher. Thank you.
No questions.
No question from Councilmember Rodriguez. The next question is from Mayor Sanchez.
Thank you, Mr. Gallagher. If selected to represent District 1 on the Oceanside City Council, what would be your priorities?
Ma'am, I think the first priority is to get us back to normalcy from COVID. As a person involved in the COVID activities and solutions at Naval Hospital Camp Pendleton, I'm keenly aware of how it's impacted our operations inside and outside the gate, especially in Oceanside. I think the council and the city staff have done a great job during COVID, helping to maintain as many businesses operations as possible. I think that is our first priority, is to return to normalcy, get our businesses back up on their feet, get that movement afoot, open up our hotels, motels, our developments, to get those TOT dollars back into our budget and to recover the economy first and move on to all the other agenda items that await Oceanside.
Thank you. The next question is from Deputy Mayor Keim.
Mr. Gallagher, is keeping sand on our beaches a priority? And if recommended, would you support fixed structures to do that?
It is a priority. Sand erosion is profound in its impact and limited in its solution. Over 20 years ago, I believe, it was Time magazine who featured a photo of Oceanside at Wisconsin Street as a demonstration of how sand has eroded across the beaches, not only in California, but even on the East Coast. We've tried various solutions. The technology is now there and approaching finesse, that it can work together in sync with Mother Nature and instead of opposition to Mother Nature. And as a member of the Surf Rider Foundation, the California Surf Museum, and as a surfer myself and beachgoer, I'm in favor of anything we can help to retain and return the sand to our beaches.
Thank you. That concludes the interview, Mr. Gallagher. We'll have you wait in the lobby outside of council chambers, and we move on to our next applicant, which is going to be Dean Anderson, and I believe Mr. Anderson is on the line. Mr. Anderson, can you hear me? We need you unmuted.
There we go.
There we go. We're in business.
Thank you.
All right, whenever you're ready, you have a 1-minute presentation.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor and council members, for this opportunity. I'm a 19-year resident of Oceanside, where I live here with my wife and 3 kids. I'm very passionate about Oceanside, but listening to all the rest of the applicants and looking through the applications, I could tell everybody else is as passionate as I am about this city and the direction it's going. I've seen, since I've been here, previous city councils, and not always agreeing on everything, but we're definitely going in the right direction. And I'm very proud when I bring folks into our town for them to see that. It would be my great opportunity to be able to be part of that process. As I told you, I have worked on different nonprofit boards and service groups within Oceanside. I've come from the private sector, so I'm a little bit different. I've seen some of the folks from an application standpoint.
That's 1 minute, Mr. Anderson.
Oh, wow.
I know, 1 minute goes
fast.
by really, really fast. So we'll move on to the first question from Councilmember Weiss.
Mr. Anderson, do you generally support or oppose the types of housing projects the city has approved over the past few years? And what would you do differently, if anything, to address the housing crisis?
Yes. As I stated before, I really enjoy the fact that the city is going in the right direction, and part of that is housing and upgrading the housing, as well as my comment would be that we'd look for a little bit more density upon different corridors.
Thank you. The next question is from Councilmember Rodriguez. No question from Councilmember Rodriguez. The next question is from Mayor Sanchez.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson. If selected to represent District 1 on the Oceanside City Council, what would be your priorities?
So a lot of these would be dittos from the previous applicants. COVID is something that is a concern, and in the private sector where I worked before, I worked in banking. And with that, I was in the process of working through many PPP loans to help businesses. And I see how a lot of them have struggled through this. So that would be one of them. The other one would be the homelessness issue within Oceanside. I'd like to direct a lot of energy towards that. And then lastly, one that probably hasn't been mentioned, but I'm very passionate about the El Corazon Park, and I'd like to get more involved in that process to ensure that the Oceanside residents themselves would be able to take more advantage of that park as it grows and develops.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from Deputy Mayor Keim.
Mr. Anderson, is keeping sand on our beaches a priority for you? And would you support fixed structures if that was the recommended solution?
Yeah, absolutely. As a person that enjoys these beaches over and over, surfing, and my family, I would. I want more sand on the beach. The key to that question, I would say, is the word recommended. If that's what is coming in, and that it would be a safe thing for our city to do from an environmental standpoint, as well as allow, good resources and the sand replenishment, then I would absolutely be in favor of it.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson. This concludes your interview. We're going to move on to the next applicant. And again, you're more than welcome to stay on the line. So our next applicant is Julia Juarez Miller. Ms. Juarez Miller, are you on the line? Can you hear me? Oh, and you're on mute, so we need you to unmute yourself.
Good afternoon.
All right, we could hear you. You have a 1-minute presentation. Whenever you're ready, you could start.
All right, good afternoon. My name is Julia Juarez Miller, and Oceanside has been home to 5 generations of my family. My husband's a teacher and football coach within the Oceanside School District, and my children attend school there as well. One of my main focuses as a council member will be to bring more awareness to our local businesses and increase the local spending at them. We have so many incredible small, medium, and large businesses in Oceanside that residents just don't know about. And just imagine spending most of your money in Oceanside and at small businesses. And that really could be our reality. What sets me apart from other applicants are numerous things, but the one I want to highlight is my ability to be an intentional listener and my and be a voice and advocate for the residents of District 1. I love this city and want to see it continue to thrive. This last year taught us a lot, and it reminded me how much local officials impact our livelihood and creating the type of community we want to live in, and I want to be a part of that process.
Thank you. The next question is from Councilmember Weiss.
Good afternoon. Do you generally support or oppose the types of housing projects the city has approved over the past few years? And what would you do differently, if anything, to address the housing crisis?
I do generally support the types of housing development the city has had over the last several years. Being the most diverse district, as District 1 is, I think that the solution for our housing does have to be representative of our population, which includes low income, affordable middle income housing, as well as our high end properties as well. I do think that whatever we do decide, it does have to strike a balance between maintaining our open land space as well as meeting the needs of the, I believe it's a 5,000 unit deficit that we have right now.
Thank you. The next question is from Councilmember Rodriguez.
No questions.
No question from Councilmember Rodriguez. Next question is from Mayor Sanchez.
Thank you, Ms. Miller. If selected to represent District 1 on the Oceanside City Council, what would be your priorities?
Yes, I have a couple of priorities, as I noted in my intro. Business and driving more awareness for our businesses in Oceanside and helping them recover from COVID and then moving them beyond that recovery is exceptionally important. We all know that homelessness in Oceanside is a big problem, and we absolutely have to pay attention to that and find a solution that makes sense. And lastly, one of the biggest things I'd like to focus on is mental health. COVID has left a lasting impact on a lot of people for various reasons, and that looks different for everybody. But bringing more awareness to mental health and making sure that the residents of Oceanside have access to it and it's readily accessible.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from Deputy Mayor Keim.
Hi. Is keeping sand on our beaches a priority for you? And if the recommended solution was fixed structures, would you support that?
Absolutely. We're a beach town, and we can't be a beach town if we don't have any beaches for people, both tourists and our residents, to go to. I'm open to any solution that is both economically and environmentally responsible. And if that means fixed structures, then yes, I'm in favor of it.
Thank you. This concludes your interview, and we're going to move on to the next applicant. You're more than welcome to stay on the Zoom call. Our next applicant is Dr. Thao Ha, and we're working to get her on the line.
Hi.
Hi. Let's go ahead and we're going to spotlight you. Perfect. All right. Can you hear me?
I can, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. And whenever you're ready, you have a 1-minute presentation.
Okay. Honorable Mayor Sanchez, Deputy Mayor Keim, Councilman Rodriguez, and Weiss, and staff, thank you so much for your time and energy in this important endeavor. I'm grateful for the opportunity to give you an additional statement. I'd be a great member of City Council because, like each of you and these other applicants, I have a strong work ethic, a commitment to public service, and a desire to see Oceanside thrive. I can contribute as someone who can think broadly, see multiple angles, views, and facets of an issue, and connect the dots to make an informed decision. I'm not afraid to ask questions, and I respect the knowledge and advice of experts in decision-making. Finally, while I would never want to be viewed as a desirable candidate just because I'm a woman of color, I can say with confidence that being a refugee from Vietnam who grew up in Texas in the 80s and 90s, I'm an example of what America has to offer. And it offers opportunities to overcome struggles, hardships, and challenges in order to achieve success. I want to support the building of those opportunities to succeed for all Oceansiders.
Thank you. Our first question is from Councilmember Weiss.
Good afternoon. Do you generally support or oppose the types of housing projects the city has approved over the past few years? And what would you do differently, if anything, to address the housing crisis?
I've generally supported the direction of the city. I think the city tries to do its best given the various demands in the variety of constituents with concerns. What I would do differently is I would look into the wider diversity of options for housing. There are a lot of new technologies. I've seen homes that are in the smaller square footage being built by 3D printers. And so those kinds of new technologies are something that we could look into as a solution for the density type of housing that we might need to address the large numbers that we are short.
Thank you. The next question is from Councilmember Rodriguez.
No question.
No question from Councilmember Rodriguez. The next question is from Mayor Sanchez.
Thank you. Dr. Ha, if selected to represent District 1 on the Oceanside City Council, what would be your priorities?
Clearly, COVID recovery is a priority. We would focus on vaccinations, jobs, small business recovery, and the mental health and well-being of our residents. I support local analyses and authority in decision-making. Clearly, our shortage in housing is an issue, and if we address affordability in equilibrium with sustainable land use through equitable development, I believe we can come up with good solutions. Also, when we increase housing availability, we address another important issue, and that is homelessness. When we address our unsheltered population, we reduce the burden on our law enforcement agency, which leads me to my next priority. And that would be to establish a positive relationship with the incoming chief of police, one that a relationship that is positive to the one that I currently have with our interim chief, Fred Armijo. And I want to support OPD's goals for effective community policing through mutual trust, transparency, and respect. And with our current national attention on policing,
Dr.
I
Ha, that's time.
prioritize. Thank you.
Our next question is from Deputy Mayor Keim.
Hi, is keeping sand on our beaches a priority for you? And would you support fixed structures if that was a recommended solution?
Yeah, as a representative of District 1, clearly the coastal community is of importance, and all of that we have done with the beach improvement projects would be for naught if we don't address sand retention. I believe that if fixed structures were what was recommended, I would support that as a short-term problem. I would also, short-term solution. What I would also support is a long-term solution in looking at climate issues and finding ways to address the rising sea levels.
Thank you, Dr. Ha. We're going to move on to our final applicant to be interviewed. And our next and final applicant is Elizabeth Ann Schwartz, or Schwartzy. I apologize if I'm mispronouncing your name. Are you there?
I'm here.
And how do you pronounce your last name?
Schwartz.
Schwartz, I apologize. Yeah. So you have a 1-minute presentation whenever you're ready.
All right, thank you very much, Honorable Mayor and Council. I'm here today because I know who we are in Oceanside. I know where we've been. I've been in and around Oceanside my entire life, and I've seen where we've been. And I know who we are because I have been in the community, writing about the community. I'm a writer for the local magazine, the Outsider, and I've been working with small businesses. I've been working with the stakeholders, the institutions that make everything that makes Oceanside amazing and wonderful. And I know how to get to where we want to go. I want to complete the City Council's vision and work with them to get to where we want to go. I have a master's degree in public policy, and I can write, read, and implement policies as needed, given the vision that we have in front of us, and knowing what we're fighting for here in Oceanside, and knowing who we are, keeping our authenticity as we grow. We need to make sure that we do that mindfully of everybody and who we are, and not lose our identity.
Thank you. Our first question is from Councilmember Weiss.
Do you generally support or oppose the types of housing projects the city has approved over the past few years? And what would you do differently, if anything, to address the housing crisis?
In general, yes, I support everything that's happened so far. What we really need to do, have a charter for 5,000 homes to come into Oceanside. We need to address socioeconomic status that's here in Oceanside, especially in our district. It's very diverse, and when we add housing, we need to pay attention with the master plan of coming forward and a vision of where we want to put these homes, what they want to look like, who they're going to serve. First-time home buyers is a big deal, and keeping our families here. We want to make sure that the generations that have been here, especially in District 1, can stay here and raise their families to help keep us authentic. And that's what I always hear when I'm interviewing people is how authentic Oceanside is. And so we want to make sure that we support housing that keeps those people here.
Thank you. Our next question's from Councilmember Rodriguez. No question from Councilmember Rodriguez. Our next question's from Mayor Sanchez.
Thank you, Ms. Schwartz. If selected to represent District 1 on the Oceanside City Council, what would be your priorities?
Thank you very much. Okay, so the priorities as we're recovering from this pandemic, it seems to be a common theme. And I'm so happy to hear other people agree that we are really in our homes, in our schools, in our businesses, we're really feeling the effects of this. So as we recover from the pandemic, we really need to support our local businesses, especially in our district. We have a lot of local businesses here. Again, the people that we're fighting for, the people that keep Oceanside authentic and keep it who we are, we need to continue to support them, and that also creates business opportunities. Another priority is mental health issues and homelessness. That also feeds into public safety. We need to continue the vision that the city has been doing. The city council has been working hard to support services that already exist in our city and continue to help that process. Another one would be our public safety, and that also comes along with mental health and homelessness. We're going to see homelessness rise, and our public safety officers and supporting them. We have the beach right in front of us.
That's time, Mrs. Schwartz. I know 1 minute goes by really fast. Our next question's from Deputy Mayor Keim.
Ms. Schwartz, is keeping sand on our beaches a priority for you? And if the recommended solution was fixed structures, would you support that?
Absolutely. In the life I've lived here, growing to Oceanside beaches, I have personally seen the sand erode. So it is imperative as a beach city, we're Oceanside, we're by the ocean, and we need to keep our sand. That's a large portion of our revenue is tourism. When people come here, they enjoy the sand, they enjoy the beaches, and I enjoy the sand and I enjoy the beaches. I want to see it. I would definitely look at recommendations, do a lot of research into where they're coming from, the numbers behind them, for the structures that are needed. And I do agree that at the large scale, we need to look at the climate crisis that we're dealing with and how we're moving forward with addressing what is causing the sand erosion. But I would definitely reach out to the experts in the field before I would approve any policy for our sand, whatever we can to fight for our sand, our ocean side.
Thank you, Ms. Schwartz. Council, that concludes the applicant interviews, and we do have public that was registered that are finally on the Zoom call for public comment.
Thank you. Let's hear from the rest of the public.
Okay. We don't have Cindy Rocco or Jean de Galjean, but we do have Jody Williams on the line, and we're going to unmute her and get her ready, and then hopefully she'll hear us. Oh, and Ms. Williams, we need you to unmute. And you are unmuted.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can, whenever you're ready.
Fantastic. So I'm appreciative of everybody who has spent time candidate-wise, but I am still utterly mystified why the City Council feels that denying the citizens of Oceanside the right to vote for the D1 council member of their choosing is the right thing to do. The council majority has shown their deafness to the people when they changed the zoning to allow the NRF development, and in doing so, they cost the city to have an election. In doing that, they gave up the right to cry out on money issues. By appointing someone without a public vote seems unconstitutional. You have shown you don't listen. Let Oceanside vote, for Pete's sake. Stop proving that you've been dropped on your head and preventing common sense from occurring. You've arbitrarily excised a number of earnest residents who have expressed desire to represent D1. COVID seems to have conveniently eliminated citizens from freely being able to give their input. I am not a savant with technology, and I feel silenced, as do so many others. Please let Oceanside vote. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And the other two speakers, Jean de Galjean and Cindy Rocco, are not on the line, and we just like to remind the public that there is a process for registering to speak, and they have to register with the city clerk's office so we could provide them the login details of Zoom, and also so we could get their information and we don't get Zoom bombed at a city council meeting. And that concludes the public comment.
Right, and today the deadline was it 1 o'clock?
1 o'clock today.
1 o'clock today. So yes, I did. I do believe that there were several people who wished to speak and thought they could just call in.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, the reason is not to, cut it off so that, to minimize the number of speakers. The reason is that we need to be able to set it up so that you'll be able to speak. And hopefully, in a few months here, we will be hosting back the public in the chamber. So I'm really looking forward to that. Next up is the discussion. We've heard from the public. We've heard from the candidates. And I believe you had envisioned talking about a top 3. So maybe what we could do is, as part of a discussion, each one of us suggest 1 or 2 people, and then someone can make a motion, starting with Councilmember Weiss.
Sure. As looking at the candidates that have more than one nomination, if you will, there's one that has 3 and several that have 2. And I'm comfortable with several of them on the list, but there is one that actually does have 3 nominations. And so I would make a motion to nominate Corey Jensen for the position.
Okay, so we're still at discussion. I think that it would benefit the public to not just do a motion second and then just, I think that.
Well, then my top 2 are Corey Jensen and Julia Juarez Miller, and I'd be comfortable with either one of them.
Okay, Councilmember Rodriguez. We're just going down the line.
I'm still thinking about it. I don't have any recommendations yet.
Okay, Deputy Mayor Keim.
I think I want to make something clear to the public at least. I heard some concerns that interviewing candidates was a waste of time. I never felt that way. I didn't express that. I cleared my calendar after Wednesday, and I met with as many as I could. I apologize for those I didn't get to, but especially the list of 5, I had at least an hour-long interview with each of them with follow-up. So this is not something we take lightly. I think we have absolutely incredible candidates. I was just sitting down through some of these interviews. I was very impressed, qualified, enthusiastic, and I think our city, it was kind of restored my faith in our city and future leadership. So today I also, this is not about my choice. This is not, I don't pick this on my own, and I think that's an important part. We all have to realize we have to come to a consensus with 3 of us. So again, I like Clyde Frazier. I also like Corey Jensen. I think, and that looks like there could be a clear path to that tonight. And I think our most recent estimate from, and I want to address some of the comments from the public, for an election from the registrar could be $400,000 to $600,000. So Marshall Street Pool costs us $47,000 a summer to operate. Brook Street Pool is $500,000 a year. Crown Heights Resource Center is $122,000 a year. And Balderrama Resource Center is $248,000 a year. I think that $400,000 to $600,000 is not made up fake money. That is real money that goes to real services. And I think it's incumbent upon us to look at our qualified candidates and see if we can find a consensus and someone who will really represent our city. So it's not time for motions, but if there's consensus, I would also be comfortable with Ms. Jensen. I think Julia Juarez Miller was incredible, but Clyde Frazier, with his experience in the Marines and his experience leading large organizations, was also very impressive.
Yeah, Councilmember Rodriguez.
But was that a second to?
No, let's.
Point of order. Was that a second to Councilmember Weiss's motion, Deputy Mayor Keim?
Point of order. Yeah. Excuse me. You're not recognized. Okay. So you did not put your light on. Did you put your light on? Because it's not here. Okay, thank you. Councilmember Rodriguez.
Councilmember Keim, was that a second to Councilmember Weiss's motion on Corey Jensen.
I'm prepared to make a second, but again, I want to hear what my colleagues say. Again, I think it's important to build some consensus today. Again, I think I just, 2 years ago, I was appointed unanimously. I was honored to be that way. I would hope we can come to the same consensus today.
Got it. I haven't made a decision. I'd like to hear what Mayor Sanchez thinks.
So you want to wait? Okay. This whole process has been very difficult for me as one who has lived in Oceanside all my life, who has 5 generations living mostly in District 1, believe it or not. And looking back at my life, my grandparents lived in District 1. I grew up in District 1. I went to Laurel, Jefferson, Oceanside High, District 1. I was born in District 1, Oceanside Community Hospital, and I had my law office in District 1, and I'm now working here, City Hall, District 1. It has been my commitment, I have made a commitment very early on, as did my parents before me, to be involved in the community and to strive to make a difference. This is not the most democratic process. I understand that some of the issues had to do with money, but having 3 appointments in this short time is difficult for me. Saying, okay, I will speak for 20,000 voters or over 20,000 voters is a difficult thing. I put forward the people that I know that lobbied me, and I did not interview everyone. I did not. I thought a week ago, I thought that we were all going to do this together as a council. And so I was surprised because of COVID, I would have had to do this on Zoom. And for me, while I have gone and been to a lot of places in District 1 because I'm very active in my district, I do not know most of the 35 people. So to base a decision on a very short interview and not know what people really care about and the relationship with the community is a very difficult thing. I know Kyle Crahill. I met him when he was on the Youth Commission, and I have seen him grow into a person who has really made community service to our community #1 on his list. And he has brought a lot of change in Oceanside, and we've worked together. He has exceptional qualifications, and he actually, of all the candidates, would have the ability to get many of our projects, help us get funded. And that to me is a wonderful thing, his generational family. I've learned that there are other candidates that have generational families here. I believe it was Ms. Jensen that said that she was it Jensen? I can't remember. Who had in her application that she was related to the bakery that was here when I was growing up on Mission Avenue. And that's like, yeah, I remember that, a business. I am sorry that I did not get a chance to meet everyone, especially, this process, I think, is not the best process. I feel that most of the comments, and I was a bit surprised, maybe you were, maybe you weren't, that people are still pretty upset at the way that we are handling this. So I am probably not going to be, the one person, District 1, in this room who really knows what District 1 needs and the underbelly of all the issues that we need to address is probably not going to be taken seriously, considered at all during this process. And the process is what it is. I do feel very strongly that the public will eventually be heard. It might be, we might have to wait 2 years for that, but today I feel that we could have done a better job. So as to the names, I still feel very strongly about Kyle Crahill and Dr. Ha and Elizabeth Schwartz. So that is not within the other two. Those are the people that I feel that actually I know something about, because either through me or through other people that I trust and who have been out there and doing a lot of work have been able to share with me some of their pursuits and their commitments to the community. And this is about a commitment to public service. It is not for everyone to be in public office. And so those are the folks that I would support. Thank you. And did you want to speak now, Councilmember Rodriguez? Yeah, I see his light, but it would be nice if we could hear from you so then we can go on with the process.
Yeah, I would just like to say that I'm actually, I'm proud that as a council, we put forward a policy to not replicate what we did in the past and to try to make it better. I don't think any of us thought we were going to get 36 applicants, and based on that, we felt that there is so much transparency in all the applications being submitted, posted online, this meeting being broadcasted, the opportunity for each council member to thoroughly research the applicants, contact them directly. And I just think, even just sitting in this short meeting, you start losing. You even didn't remember what one applicant said over another, and we only interviewed 11. Could you imagine doing that over 2 days? That would have just been, my brain would not be able to remember one thing from the next, and it would have really complicated. And I think in the end, this method and this process was the best use of our time and the public. We've heard, I think we've received over 60, 70 emails in reference to, candidates they support, or, some individuals would prefer a special election. There's the financial side of a special election, but there's also the side that says we're not going to have a 5-member voting body for over a year. And then once that special election occurs, not only will it cost our city a lot of money and lack of services, that individual that's in office would only be in office for a year. So there is so much, from my perspective, there's so much more damages going down that route than to do this process that I hope we continue to make better. So I definitely think there is an opportunity to appoint, and I will yield my time. You have your light on, Councilmember
Thank
Weiss?
you very much. Next in line is Deputy Mayor Keim.
I just want to address a couple of statements I heard and make sure there's some clarity moving forward. I don't want to be in this position. I don't want to, again, I think it's more appropriate for the citizens to decide. I didn't cause this election. I'm trying to deal with a problem that's in place in front of me. This is the second time it's happened. When I was appointed, I received criticism for my appointment that I wasn't involved, and I tried to address that. This time, I'm trying, and I hope partner with council to do what's right for the city. Again, I don't know the candidates that I think are at the very top of my list. I don't know them either. I don't have relationships with them. I spent time, I spoke with them, I asked them very serious questions, and again, different way. It's not, regardless of if we interviewed 35 people or not, I'm not comfortable making an appointment like this based on a 5-minute interview. So it was very important to me to sit down and actually really feel what I think they could bring to the city, and if they could, properly serve 180,000 people or 40,000 people, District 1. And we're all here to serve the district. As mayor, you're still serving District 1. I think that the concerns are not going to be overlooked. I think we're positioned to do a great job. I think there's going to be some unity on the council going forward. I'm very optimistic, so I don't share those pessimistic tones. I think we're in a great position. Again, we're going to have, this is a trial, as I experienced. You have 2 years to show if you're doing a good job or not. I had to, when I ran for election, I had to answer to the decisions I made, whether it was North River Farms, different housing developments, the budget. Those were things I did. I wasn't an election where I said, I will do this. I had done it. And I think it gives a clear choice if this candidate chooses to run again. So again, this is not my first choice. It's the situation we're confronted with. And I'm comfortable going forward with some consensus. But thank you.
Okay, Councilmember Weiss.
And I will echo some of what Deputy Mayor Keim said. Out of the top candidates of the 11, I've met similarly with most of them and had conversations with them. And I know, Mayor Sanchez, you feel you're most qualified to look at the diverse issues affecting District 1, but I didn't hear one of these 11 say that they felt that they could not effectively represent District 1, just the opposite. There were some very good candidates, and I think there are some highly skilled and highly qualified candidates that have just as much history and background and passion for the city as you obviously do. And so with that, I will make the motion that we appoint Corey Jensen to the position.
And I will second that motion.
Thank you. There's a motion and a second. No further lights. Please vote.
Motion approved, 3-1, Sanchez, no.
Thank you. Next are public comments on city council matters off agenda items.
We have 2 speakers registered. The first speaker is Cindy Rocco. I don't know if she's on the line. She is not on the line. So we'll move on to our next public speaker, which is Arlene Hammerschmidt. And is she unmuted? Oh, Ms. Hammerschmidt, we need you unmuted.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. There we go. Pictures too. Hello, everybody. Just one quick off-agenda public comment. It is neither ethical or respectful to browbeat a colleague or speak in disparaging tones of them during council meetings. So please use, when addressing your colleagues, please use council member or whomever, and establish the professional environment in that manner, and never refer to each other by first names, because that's in a breakdown of the professional environment. And it just makes everything, well, A, less professional, but more open to microaggressions. And that's all I have to say. Tonight was pretty good as far as respect, mutual respect of everybody. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I want to first of all thank all the applicants for taking the time to go through this process. I want to congratulate Ms. Jensen as the new council member for District 1. I think it's final as of today. Is that correct, Mr. Mullen?
Yes, she'll need to take her oath of office through the city clerk's office, but
Okay.
then she'll be the official member at that point.
So she should contact Mr. Devato so
Yeah,
that
we
they can...
will reach out to Councilmember Select, I guess, Jensen, and we'll administer the oath of office and have her sign the oath of office.
Thank you. And I would like to my no vote to reflect that I truly believe we should have had an election, and that I did not feel comfortable supporting someone that unfortunately I did not know and substitute my, few seconds really of being here for the over 20,000 voters. Thank you very much, and we are going to adjourn to the next regularly scheduled meeting, which is on Wednesday, February 3rd at 5 p.m. Thank you.